Right. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 5th episode of our first series of webinars. This is the last episode of this series. However, don't be alarmed. We have decided that we are going to do another 5 episodes. We're just going to have 1 week's break, and then we will come back and we're going to have some really interesting topics and actually some guest speakers that we have secured already. So it's very exciting to look forward to that. The usual housekeeping rules apply, that we will be muting everybody while the presentation is taking place. We have a lot to cover today, so post your questions and we'll try to get to them, but as usual, we'll send an email if we don't get to all of them. Caroline's Fine Wines has a special mixed case of Saxenburg wines available today. So be sure to contact Caroline for any orders. The details are going to be posted in the chat box shortly. And then, of course, we mustn't forget that today is International Chardonnay Day. So I hope everybody has their glass of Chardonnay at the ready. We will be toasting to it at the end of the talk. So welcome, Dirk. I think we've learned so much in the last few weeks, right? But now for a look into the future and what that holds for the industry, but obviously specifically for Saxenburg. So in the beginning of this series, we spoke about the replanting phase that we're going through at Saxenburg. Why do we do it? What does it entail, and how long does it take?
Well, so firstly, it's always important to look at replanting for various reasons. One is vineyards tend to have a certain lifespan. I know there's a lot at the moment going on about the Old Vine Association and doing some brilliant stuff, and there's some really fantastic old vineyards out there. But unfortunately, there are a lot of diseases that a vineyard can get over with age. One of those are leaf mold. We've chatted about that. That's obviously a serious problem, but you get various trunk diseases and rotting diseases that actually kills the grapevine or takes away the productivity. So generally, one has to look at replanting your vineyards after 25 or 30 years. If you're lucky, they do get older than that, but that's the general age gap. I mean, a 25 or 30-year-old vineyard is seen as a geriatric almost in a viticultural sense. So that's the reason why you always have to look at it. But replanting is a very time-consuming thing. So there are various methods before you start look at replanting. We're going to do a GIS study on the farm now in the next few months, which is really exciting. So they look at the aspects, they look at the daylight hours for each of the slopes on the farm, solar radiation. So you know exactly where are the warmer spots, where are the cooler spots, what exposures do you have, and that helps inform your replanting decisions. Then you do soil analysis, you look at soil analysis, at soil descriptions, that then forms part of the decision-making process. And then you look at, okay, what do we actually need? Well, firstly, what works well on the site, and then what do we need? What do we predict we're going to need? Because replanting, to give you an idea about the time scale, if we decide to replant a vineyard now, let's say we're going to order the vines this year, we're going to prepare the soil next year, we're going to plant the vines that we ordered this year next year. So that's where we're in 2021. It takes 3 years before we get 10% of a normal crop from that. So in 2024, we're basically getting a first crop. And then in realistic sense, we're looking toward 2028 that we're actually starting to make some decent wine, more realistically in 2030. So thinking the decisions that we make now, that we make today, we have to think about where is Saxenburg going to be, where is the demand going to be in 10 years from now, because that's really what we're planting for. We're not planting for tomorrow, we're not planting for the day after that, we're planting for 10 years from now. So it's a very time consuming, and it's a slow process. I think you used the analogy yesterday when we had a chat about it's a big ship that you're turning. It's not a small little sailboat. It's a big ship, and it's slow, long turns. So it's very much on replanting, but it's very exciting always to look at it. So we're going to set up a short term, between now and the next 5 years, what do we want to plant? 5 to 10 years and 10 to 20 years plan, and have an idea of where do we see Saxenburg, and it's going to be a plan that's always going to be changing, as you know, as we get more informed, and as the market changes, and as our vision for Saxenburg might change. But it's definitely a very exciting program to be part of.
Yeah, and like you say, it just takes an enormous amount of time, which I don't think that people kind of really kind of appreciate when they say, when people talk about trends and stuff, then it doesn't just happen just overnight like that. So, but while we were having our discussion preparing for this, you did speak to me, or you told me about this GIS, so Geographical Information Systems, I think is.
Something like
Did I get it wrong?
It's something like that, yeah.
It's fascinating that you can actually then pinpoint an area of the vineyard that is then maybe like different to the rest of the vineyard, and you can exactly. Deal with it then in a different way. That's kind of fascinating and amazing, the technology. That's
It is incredible. It's incredible the amount of information that you can have at your fingertips. And it's a once-off study that you do, and you look at all of these different slopes, and you'll have pockets of the farm that you might have thought were warmer, but then you see it on this, it's actually, it gets a lot less radiation, gets a lot less, the lower temperatures and all of that. And then if you couple that with a proper soil study, and you map your soil forms in those blocks, you can really start pinpointing to all of the, and you can pick these little parcels separately, because it's not always possible to keep them in a separate block, because sometimes one section might only be 0.2 hectares and there's another section of 1 hectare. You can't necessarily split the block up, but you can go and harvest those separately, and you can manage those vineyards separately within that block. And that's really where the fine tuning and the really exciting stuff comes from.
Yeah, I suppose, it's not just the question of, oh, we want to plant Chardonnay. I'm picking on Chardonnay today, but you got to know that that's going to work well there, or and actually do well. So there is a question from Juliet. Where does Saxenburg buy their vines from?
There are various nurseries that grow them, because you have to have a different rootstock to the normal vine material. So you generally use French variety or more European varieties, Vitis vinifera as our normal grapes, but then it's American rootstocks, because they are resistant to phylloxera, and phylloxera decimated the wine industry, all over the world when it came out, but the American vines are resistant to them, so that's why everything is grafted on American rootstocks. But it's from various nurseries. A lot of them are situated on more Wellington side, so generally in more sandy soils, warmer areas that are drier, that are healthy, not conducive to a lot of mildew and rot and all of that. But there are various ones that you can purchase vines from.
And then, are there any specific trends that we are following in the vineyard? We've said that it's not easy, but how do you adapt then to the constant changing consumer demands and behavior?
Well, I think it's always important to firstly as a business and as a wine business, to stay relevant, and therefore to know what the trends are and to know where the markets are going. But not to stare blindly at that, because you'll be a dog chasing its tail, because you will forever be behind the curve if you want to react to every trend. I think it's important for the business to have a clear vision about where do we see ourselves in the next 5, 10, or 15 years, and almost mark your path on that, and not just follow trends. That being said, one has to be aware about what is going on. We can't be blind to that. But as I said, it's a very long-term thing, and you can't make sudden changes. So if you're going to try and jump from trend to trend, it's really not for an estate like us. If you're perhaps just a brand and you're just a label and you buy in wine from wherever you want to buy in wine, then you're more adaptable, and you can really change as the wind blows you. But that's not what we're trying to be. We're an estate. We want to showcase Saxenburg, So for us, we have to be more considerate and more long-term thinking.
Yes, and we have made those decisions that we are focusing our energies on certain varieties, right? So it's Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Cab, and Shiraz are our 4 varieties that we are focused on. So what are you replanting right now?
So we've planted a block of a block of Shiraz last year on a north-facing slope. So we're quite excited about that. And then we've got a young block of Cabernet that had its first production this year, and it's already showing a lot of promise. I'm really, really excited about that block in the coming years. Then we're looking at planting. We're going to plant next year another block of Cabernet. It's another about 2.5 hectares of Cabernet. Fantastic clone, fantastic rootstock, and a beautiful piece of land. So that's really exciting. And then after that, we've got this big south-facing slope. And I was actually walking there earlier this week, and it is just phenomenal. I get goosebumps almost looking at it and thinking about the wines that we're going to produce from that. Even though it's 6, 7, 8 years down the line, but I get so excited about already planning. Oh, we're going to do this and this and this in the winery, and this is how we're going to bring the best out of it. And that's going to be focused on Syrah and Chardonnay.
Okay, great. Great, excellent. Such great news for the future. So then into the cellar. There's always new techniques, I'm sure, for cellar management. Never mind all the little mod cons that you can get. But what is relevant to Saxenburg, and how do we improve? You've spoken a lot about the building blocks. So what are you getting in that is going to improve those building blocks? And I hope you.
Yeah. Well, we keep it relatively simple. So you can get very high tech and there's some fantastic equipment, especially if you're a bigger winery. There's optical sorters and stuff that you can sort everything down to the finest detail. We are a smaller scale winery. We're more hands-on, and we can therefore put more effort into monitoring whatever comes into the winery and ensuring that is in the vineyard, that we almost do a selection in the vineyard already throughout the season, so that what we bring into the winery is only the best fruit. So we keep it relatively simple. And as far as trends go, it's always interesting to see, in the 80s and 90s, everyone started going to stainless steel tanks, and it was just tanks, and you had these roto tanks for red wine fermentations. Now we're seeing this going back full circle, where concrete is now uncoated concrete is the craze at the moment, and amphoras, clay amphoras, and all of these, vessels that have been used for hundreds and hundreds of years are now coming to the fore again. So that's something that we're looking into. But like I said, I don't believe in just following a trend just for the sake of following a trend. If we feel it will add a dimension to Saxenburg and add an element of excitement to the wines, but to the current wines that we have that we're just trying to fine tune, then we'll look at bringing some of those components in. But at the moment, we're keeping it relatively simple, and fine tuning what we have, I think, is the most important. Get that right before you want to get some fancy tools.
Yes, because as you say, we are a relatively small wine producing estate. So, we don't, we can actually do it much more of a hands-on kind of approach. So then Dave has a question. How do you ensure, we're going back to the vineyards, how do you ensure that the vines you are buying from the nursery will produce good quality wine?
You build relationships with the nurseries, and then I must say the nurseries are the last few years are really fantastic. I think when there was a big rush in the industry to plant more grapes, and then there was sometimes a not so great material coming into the market, and this was more in the 90s. But at the moment, the nurseries are doing fantastic work on ensuring that the plant material is completely clean and have no viruses or anything like that. And then to ensure that you make good wine from it is really you're looking at what rootstock you should use. So that's coupling into what's the soil like. So you look at the rootstock, clones. So you can decide on Shiraz, but there's something like 20 or whatever clones of Shiraz, and some produce massive bunches and big yields, and some are smaller bunches, smaller berries. So therefore, for different end goals. So then you look at the clones, and that's all of these things come together and decide. And it's always, you try and you speak to as many people as you can, and you inform yourself as much as you can. But it's always a little bit nervous anticipation when you get the grapes into the winery for the first time, and you hope all of this planning has come and this investment has come to fruition.
And I suppose, I mean, you've got to trust. There's a trust relationship involved, and also, I guess, things have changed over the years. There's much more. Now I've forgotten the word, but there's people are more accountable. They can't. Whereas possibly in the past it might not have exactly been like that, but and you have touched on it, but has there been one thing that you've seen in your time in the cellars about that has improved and made your work better or easier, or something that you found?
I think the biggest change in the wine industry as a whole has been a shift to where winemakers spend a lot more time in the vineyards. And that's not really a technological thing or anything, but I think there's a lot more of an understanding that the grower is of utmost importance, and you cannot sit in your office for 9 months of the year and in January all of a sudden emerge and walk into the vineyard and be upset about stuff that's maybe been done wrong. It's really a process that you have to be involved in from the get-go. I mean, on Friday we've got our pruning meeting and planning meeting for the year, basically, on what's our strategy on each block going to be. It's not a blanket, we're going to prune like this and we're going to do this. It is a block to block. We look at what was the production this year, what's the quality of the wine this year, and then pull that through of how are we going to manage this, how can we improve, how can we fine-tune this. So I think that, and I know it's not a technological thing, but it's really, I think, just a change of mindset has been the biggest thing.
Well, which is also, and then you've got the technology to be able to back that up now, I guess. So, you can do it. So then on to what's always a hot topic is closures. So our guinea fowl range is under screw cap, as I hope everybody knows, and our private collection range is under cork. So what are the new technologies with cork? Is there anything that Saxenburg is changing from a closure point of view? What can we talk about that? I know this is like I say, it's a big topic to talk about, but just from a sort of a future point of view.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, cork has always been, and it will probably always be the traditional closure for wine. Been used for so many years because it is a fantastic closure. Because it's like I've touched on some of the previous webinars, we've got this, as a winemaker, you've got this love-hate relationship with oxygen. You want a little bit of it, but you don't want too much of it. Cork is that good middle ground where it gives you that little bit of oxygen, but it doesn't give you too much. But cork is a natural product, and with any natural product comes uncertainties and things that you cannot control. So sometimes on some cork batches, you get massive problems of TCA, cork taint, which can, I mean, it's heartbreaking when you put all of that effort into a bottle, into your bottles of wine, and then 1 in 6 bottles has a fault, and that's nothing that you've done wrong. It's just the cork. So that is very heartbreaking. But the cork suppliers have changed. There's a lot of new technology there. So 2 or 3 years ago, that most of the suppliers now have technology where they can test individual corks. Because in the past it was always a batch. You just put a bag of corks in and you test the batch, but then you can't reuse those corks. You just get an indication of the batch. But now they can actually test every single cork to ensure that it is TCA free, which gives you a level of insurance. I mean, it's not 100% perfect, that technology, yet. I think there's still sometimes something weird creeps through, but it's definitely improved the quality of corks a whole lot. And then screw caps are lovely because screw cap is almost the way you bottle wine under screw cap. It's going to stay like that for a lot longer. The progression the maturation is a little bit slower, especially you also get not a lot of people know, but you get two different kinds of screw caps. They look exactly the same, but they've got a different lining. So next time you open a bottle, look inside, there's a lining on the inside of the screw cap. If it's white on the inside, it's called Saranex. That lining is Saranex. That actually lets in a small amount of oxygen. So it's generally for wines that are for early consumption. It's not wines that you want to really age for too long, because the oxygen do become a little bit too much, because it doesn't stop. It's always, it just continues to let in oxygen. But then if you open it and it's got a silver lining or like a tin lining, it's called Sarantin. And that's completely inert. So there's no oxygen coming through that. So that's for something that you put on the screw cap that you want to keep a little bit longer, especially whites that are very sensitive to oxygen. So that's interesting on that fact. Then also what we've been using now for the past 2 years on our Sauvignon Blanc and on our Chardonnay now as well is a new cork. Well, it's made out of sugarcane. So it's a completely natural product. It's carbon. It's zero carbon footprint. So it's fantastic in that sense. So it's very green friendly. And it's working well, and you get, what's lovely about that is you get a lot of the benefits of cork, but with a lot more consistency, because it's more manufactured. The cork is literally, it's the bark of the cork tree that they just punch the cork out of. So each one is slightly different. So you have different levels of oxygen coming through. With these closures, and you also get conglomerated corks where they cut up, well, basically mince the cork and then put them together again. You have a lot with these. You have a lot more consistency. It's still I'm gonna now, with each of our bottlings, I'm gonna trial different closures. So I'm gonna do a bit of natural cork. I'm gonna do a bit of the conglomerated cork, and I'm gonna do sugarcane cork on all of our wines. But just on small, we'll keep to what we've been doing. But on small volumes, I'll do that. So, and then we can taste in 6 months' time, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, how the wine ages and how our wine, because everyone has their own opinion, but it's to their wine. It's applicable to their wine. So I'm interested in what Saxenburg does under each of these closures. So if we change closures, it will be a long process to get there, and it will be an informed decision then when we do get there.
Yes, because I mean, there are so many options now. I mean, I think in the past it used to only be one option, but we don't have that luxury anymore of just the natural cork anymore. I mean, I don't, not to maybe go into a lot of detail on it, but I mean, there's also cost implications, right? I mean, you were talking about those corks that are individually tested. I mean, that must be a lot more expensive kind of. Yes, exactly. So, you know, I think, what you put in is what you get out. But at the end of the day, you want your wine to have the best.
Exactly. I mean, and it all depends on what price point you're selling the wine at as well. That has to be a consideration. But just to give you an idea of the cost, generally for those individually tested corks, it adds about 2 Rand per cork. So a normal cork costs you about, let's say, 5 Rand, depending on the quality of cork. It ranges from about 4.50 to about 7-8 Rand a cork, and then it's 2 Rand on top of that for the individually tested. You also have, I don't know who would want this job, but you have some of the places that have sniffed corks as well. So individually sniffed corks. So all of these, hundreds of thousands of millions of corks, are put into their separate containers. They're warmed up to a certain temperature where the TCA and off flavors becomes a little more volatile. And then literally a person comes to work and all they do is go and then just put aside what they don't like. Imagine doing that for 10 hours of the day. Just smelling
I'd rather be smelling the product that's in the bottle. So there is a question from Caroline. Are the sugarcane corks locally produced?
No, they're imported. I don't think we've got the hardware here to produce them locally yet. But that might be something. I'm gonna have our closures company. We use Inventions for a lot of our closures, and I'll have them on hopefully next month, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty of how they are produced and where they are sourced from and all of that.
Okay, great. Because just to go back to the basics, cork, natural cork is produced in Portugal
Portugal
only?
and Spain.
And Spain.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's very
mainly,
limited.
yeah.
Very limited too. Sorry.
And those trees are very old. It's quite interesting. I think you can have your first harvest on the cork tree is under correction here. Is it about 11 years or something? And then you can harvest them about every 8 or so years. But I think it's only after about 40 years that you can really produce premium quality corks from them. So it's also, that's an extremely long-term investment.
Yes.
I think it's only us in the New World aren't used to such long-term investments. It's more the European countries that are used to planting something for the next generation.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, also going on to talking about the screw caps, I mean, there's still so much, sorry, I'm losing my words today. So much, sorry, I've lost my words. But anyway, never mind. So when it all comes down to at the end of the day, the future and where we're going, what is your winemaking philosophy when deciding what new trends to adopt or what new technologies to adopt?
Well, I think you firstly consider. First thing to consider is we want to let Saxenburg shine. We want the estate to shine through. We want the terroir of Saxenburg. We want to capture that in a glass. I think that's in essence what you try and do as a winemaker. You try and capture what is special about this place. So that every decision that you make goes along that is how best can you showcase, how best can you capture what we have. Because I mean, it really is. It's fantastic to be able to work with beautiful soils and beautiful sites and slopes, and it's daunting to know that you have to. It's your job to showcase that to the world, and that's really the starting point, and that goes into then in the winery using almost a minimal intervention approach where you do as much as you have to, but as little as possible. You let the grapes speak for itself. You consider it, and in oaking, I mean, oak is great and it adds a whole lot to wine, but it can also dominate and it can also take away so much of the wine. So you're considerate about which barrels to use, about the toastings of those barrels, and that's important on all of that, and goes through to viticulture, and all of that is really letting the vineyards and the sites and the slopes do the talking, and not having too much of an individual footprint. Because I mean, Saxenburg has been around for 30 years. I've been here now for all of 6 months. So I mean, for me to want to put my fingerprint on it, it would be stupid. It would be counterproductive. It is really, I want to let Saxenburg shine. I'm just fortunate that I'm the guy trusted to do that. So hopefully I get it right. And so only time will tell. And that's the exciting part. It's the daunting part. It's the stressful part, but it's flippin' exciting.
It's exciting at the same time. Yes. The word I was looking for was research. Sorry, if I go back to what I was getting at is that there's still so much research that needs to be done on screw caps. Sorry, I'm going backwards, but that I think it's we don't know yet because technology hasn't been around long enough really to actually know. That was my point. So, but yes, I think that you do have a daunting task. It's, as you say, it's exciting, and you've got to use all the tools that are available. But also, you got to know which ones to use and which not, I suppose. Definitely. So, Simone has asked, what is your opinion on rooibos barrels or rooibos oaking?
Okay. Well, I haven't actually.
That's a new technology, right?
Yes, that's very new, and it's probably South African. I haven't actually worked with it, and I've tasted once or twice. So as I understand, the big benefit of rooibos is you can use a lot less sulfur, and sometimes very little sulfur because of the antioxidant effect of the rooibos. So I'm gonna play it safe here and not expand too much on it because I haven't worked with it too much. But I think it's definitely something exciting. I mean, it's definitely, will it become a mainstay? I don't think it's necessarily going to dominate the industry. I think there's a reason why we use oak barrels predominantly, because it works so well. But it's definitely, I think there is a market for rooibos. There's a market for lower sulfur wines, and if that is the way that you can get there, that's definitely a great tool to have. But yeah.
Well, you know, you've got to know about all of these things, like we spoke about. You've got your salt and pepper that you add, and your bits and pieces, and your building blocks.
Yeah.
So you've got to know about all of these things, I guess, to know what
Exactly.
to use and what not to use, or what might work and what might not work. So yeah. Well, in closing, we unless there's something else that you want to add, Dirk.
No, well, not anything specifically. I think as we're wrapping this up, the first season, how time has flown. I mean, it's incredible.
Yes.
But
when we started this, we were real novices, right?
We were out in the vineyard, and yeah, I think thank you for everyone taking the time out of their day. I know people tend to have a bit more time with the current situation to spend time online, but it's fantastic to be able to share a little bit of what we do and why we do certain things, and hopefully enrich or give you a better understanding of next time that you drink a bit of Saxenburg or open a bottle of Saxenburg wine, you can understand a bit more about the thinking that goes behind it and the love and the care that we put into the product, and hopefully satisfies you when you drink it. So just thank you for everyone joining. It's been fantastic. And if you ever have any questions or anything else, we'll be doing plenty more of these webinars, but just give us a call. I'm always free. I love chatting about wine and sharing what we do. So
well, thank you very much. So in closing, please follow our YouTube channel, where all of our webinars are on there, the recordings of them, as well as a whole lot of other cool videos that Dirk and the team have been involved with. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and we'll be keeping up our postings in the next couple of weeks. But also remember, please, Vivino, our Saxenburg wines, maybe in particular today, you can rate our Chardonnay on Vivino and just give us a little shout out. The next webinar will take place on Thursday, the 4th of June. So it's not next week, but the week after, and I'll send out details as soon as possible. To purchase any of our wines, please contact Caroline's, and again, the details are in the chat, or you obviously can contact us directly. We have included a prize draw for being part of this meeting again, so one lucky person will win a magnum of Private Collection Shiraz, and Simpiwe, who is our Gauteng ambassador, has chosen Yaku Pino. From all of the people that have joined us this afternoon. I know Yaku has been quite a loyal follower, so thank you very much. We'll get your wine to you as soon as possible. And again, from my side, thank you as well to all who have watched these webinars. We've really enjoyed putting them together, and we hope you have also, as Dirk has said, gained some good insights into Saxenburg and our winemaking philosophies. We will see you again very soon, and like I say, it's going to be a nice, slightly different next season. But cheers, and cheers to Chardonnay for today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.